Welcome to the Library of Congress's National Book Festival. It is one of my favorite events of the year where authors are treated like rock stars, as they should be. Today, I'm thrilled to be here for the Let's Celebrate the Small and Mighty Marisol. Small and Mighty. I love her so much. With Erin Entrada Kelly, who is our rock star of the hour. Her latest illustrated children's book is Surely Marisol Rainey. I'm sure you know. A companion book to Maybe Marisol Rainey. Erin is a New York Times bestselling author. She has received numerous awards, including the Newbery Award for Hello Universe, which was a family favorite. It was the book that my child read and then wanted to give to his friend, who then gave it to his friend and circulated in the class, and it was just such a beautiful book. And only if Marisol, see, they were too old by the time Marisol came out.
Yeah.
Now they're teenagers. But she's also a professor of children's literature, and if you've read her books, you know she's from Louisiana. But you may not know she's a journalist, which is so cool, because I'm a journalist. If you don't know me, I'm a news anchor for NBC4. I'm Eun Yang. Thank you. I love reading. I love reading so much. I wish I had more time to read. I know everyone says that. And I've been participating in the book festival in some capacity for more than 10 years. And I just always love talking to an author I have some connection with. I get really excited about it. I really love to find out what's going on in your mind, how you come up with these amazing characters. Thanks to all the sponsors who made this festival possible. Those sponsors will be on your screen at some point. And you will have the chance to ask Erin questions at the end of the session. If you have some prepared, great. If not, you can think about them or just spontaneously ask her a question. The microphones are here. We'll have about 10-15 minutes for that. And Erin, one more housekeeping note, will be signing her books from 11:30 to 12:30 after this session. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Erin Entrada Kelly. It's so great to meet you in person.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Oh my gosh. I just find that Marisol is such a unique and unlikely heroine. I love that she is from Louisiana and her mom is from the Philippines. How much of Marisol is you?
So Marisol is definitely the most autobiographical character I've ever written in a lot of ways. Her family's a little different, but as far as who Marisol is, the spirit of who she is, the things that she loves, the things that she doesn't love, those are all me. So she's very much me at that age, 7, 8 years old.
And I love that Marisol is not necessarily the kind of girl who someone would write a book about. The irony of that, she's a worrier and she's hesitant. And like me, I remember being that age and being risk averse and being afraid to try things and always thinking about what might happen. Why did you want to write about her, and why was it important for you to tell her story, which is your story too?
Yes, so when I was a kid, I read a lot of books. I love to read. And I noticed that a lot of the books, not only did the characters not look like me, being Filipino, but the characters themselves were often very precocious kids. They got in trouble, and they didn't mean to get in trouble, and they were kind of big personalities on the page. And I never really connected with those characters because I was quiet. I loved to read. I worried all the time. I would go to bed at night just worrying, my brain's just turning and turning.
I still do that.
Yes,
those bubbles
I know.
that you illustrate, that is me every night.
Yes, that's my brain. That was my brain when I was in elementary school, and it's still pretty much my brain now. But so that's the kind of kid I was. I was quiet. And I just felt like it's important that all the quiet worriers, as Marisol has been called out there, get represented in a book. Because I remember the first and only book I could really remember connecting to at that age. Of course, I loved many books, but as far as feeling a connection, there was a series of books called the Sweet Pickles Collection. I don't know if anyone remembers Sweet Pickles, but it was very popular in the 80s. And there was a character called the Very Worried Walrus. And his friend, the pig, was trying to convince him to ride a bike. And Walrus started worrying. What if I fall off? I don't know how to ride a bike. What if this happens? What if that happens? And I was very much a what if kind of kid. And I thought, oh, this is someone like me, even though it was a walrus. So I loved that book, and I would always pull it off the shelf. And that's what I wanted my book to do.
Right, I know, and I love that because I feel like I was not the kid growing up. I work for a living on television. But if you had asked anyone who knew me in elementary school, even in high school, do you think Eun Yang is going to be a news anchor? No one, not a one person said, oh, she's absolutely destined for that. I did not speak out. I was worried about things, as Marisol was. But that didn't make me not interesting.
Yes.
And I think that's what speaks to, in one of the ways that Marisol speaks to me, is that you don't have to be that person who's constantly in the spotlight. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I think that's really important because I feel like the people who take up a lot of space in a room, who have big personalities, usually they get a lot of the attention and a lot of the focus. And there's nothing wrong with that if you have a big personality. That's great. My daughter has a huge personality. It would fill this convention center. But there's also the kids who are often overlooked because they're quiet or because they're not necessarily the best at anything in their class. They're just, you know, a kid, an ordinary kid. And it's really easy for those kids to be overlooked and feel overlooked. And when I was a kid, you know, I definitely wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the most beautiful, I wasn't the funniest, I wasn't the averse of any of those things either. I was just a kid.
You were so describing me. Oh my gosh, Erin, that's what I say to people. I was never, and I was just flying under the radar.
Yeah. And it feels like when you're one of those kids, it feels like everyone else has got it together. You know, I think adults feel like that too, where you look around and you're like, everyone's got it together but me. When really no one really has it together. But when I was a kid, the things that worried me, the things that gave me anxiety, were things that no one else seemed to be worried about. Yeah. So in Maybe Marisol Rainey, there's a tree in her backyard that she's afraid to climb. And everyone just scampers right up the tree, and she feels like the only one who's afraid.
Peppina, I love the name.
Peppina, yes, the tree. Marisol likes to name things, so she named the tree Peppina. And it's definitely based off of myself. I didn't climb a tree until my friend Sharon, to celebrate the release of Maybe Marisol Rainey, took me to climb my first tree.
You're
and this
kidding.
was in 2020, I guess it was.
I love this story.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that deserves an thank you. I think that is wonderful.
Thank you.
Since we're True Confessions, I'm still terrible at riding a bike. Like when I'm so glad Marisol flies on that bike because it was one of those things. I was nervous, I tried to learn, then I fell, and then it was like, I'm never getting back on. And now as an adult, I wanted to make sure my daughter could ride a bike because I can't go on family vacation and ride a bike because I'm nervous and I don't have good balance, and I still have to learn.
I get that. I still have a fear of falling, like going downstairs. I have this image, you know, that I'm gonna fall. And when I climbed the tree, I was nervous because Marisol's very afraid she's going to climb up and fall. She's convinced that she will fall. So that's kind of what prevents her from going up. But when I went up the tree, my friend Sharon took a picture. I put it on Instagram. And then I did an event with Jeff Kinney, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, with his bookstore. And he said, Erin, I saw the picture, but it was a really close-up picture, so I can't see how high that branch is off the ground. And I just said, don't worry about it.
Right.
Because the branch I was sitting on was not very high. But the point is, I climbed it.
The fact that you climbed it.
Yes.
And that gives me encouragement. Maybe I can get back on a bike. In your most recent book, Surely, we learned that Marisol hates gym class, which we discovered we both hated gym class. And then it's kickball. And I was always the last or the second to last or close to last of being picked for kickball, which creates anxiety.
Yes.
It just makes you worry about all these things. And reading this book, it was like flashback to Mr. Lee's PE class and not wanting to do kickball.
Yes. And I was definitely the last or the second to last one picked. I have learned, and maybe some of the young people in the audience can verify or deny what I'm about to say, but I have learned that they don't often do the picking of the teams anymore in gym class. But when we were growing up, and many of you were growing up, the gym teacher would have team captains, right? And then the team captains would get to pick who's on their team.
That's how it worked with our...
Yes. As a lot of schools, at least when we were growing up. And it was such a nightmarish experience because, well, for people like me who were picked...
And me.
Yes, who were picked last. And what's funny is, well, not funny, but what's interesting is there was another girl Jessica, who was very, very nice, but she was extremely shy, and it was usually either me or her who was picked last. And I would stand there with my heart beating, you know, as the captain's picking. And I just never wanted to be last. And I would sit there and think, please let it be Jessica. Even though Jessica was so nice,
sweet,
which is kind of mean.
Right.
But I thought, please let it be Jessica, don't let it be me. And if I was second to last, that was a victory, right?
Because we're human, and Marisol's human.
Yes, I was, and Marisol is very afraid of team sports in particular, because with kickball, with team sports, as Marisol says, the spotlight is always on you. So you have to kick the ball, and if the ball comes towards you, you have to catch the ball, or you have to throw the ball, and she's not really good at any of those things. So she has a lot of anxiety building up to this kickball game.
Oof.
And it's very much informed by softball. What I would do when it was time to play softball as a kid in PE class, I would sneak to the back. Like when I was getting closer to get up to the plate, I would like casually sneak to the back of the line. But you can only do that so many times before someone calls you out. But I had so much anxiety, just like Marisol did, just about being on display and just failing
in front of everybody.
In front of everyone, and being the reason why your team doesn't win. It's a lot of pressure if you're not good at sports. Anyone who's not good at sports will sympathize, I think.
And if you're shy, or if you're not in the spotlight, to even know, am I good at sports? Am I coordinated? Because I didn't want to put myself out there to begin with to even ever know that I was going to be good at anything, because I was afraid. Or
exactly.
Worried, right? So those are all those things. I'm like, oh, Marisol. But
I know,
you're rooting for Marisol. I feel like even her brother Oz, who is good at sports and is good at all sports, is still rooting for Marisol.
Yes.
What can we learn from that?
I think that what we can learn from it is, speaking of Oz, I get a lot of mail from kids who are really good at, who are kind of the opposite of Marisol, very confident and very athletic and very good at sports. And even those kids relate to Marisol, or at least sympathize with her, and they're rooting for her the whole time, and they get really happy when, you know, she succeeds. And I think one thing that's important to know is that we're all afraid of something. Even the people who seem like they're not afraid of anything, everyone is afraid of something. And whether it's small somethings or big somethings, they all feel like big somethings when you're the one who's afraid of it, right? I remember, for example, when I was in elementary school, we had to give like book reports in front of the class. I don't know if any of you have ever had to get in front of the class and talk. And again, my heart would be just pounding because I was terrified. And there was always this kid, Ramon was his name. He was always the first to raise his hand. He's like, I want to go first. And he would just run up there. He was so excited to talk in front of the class. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, why can't I be more like Ramon? He's not scared at all. When in reality, Ramon may not have been scared of that, but I guarantee you he's scared of something else. And it's important to support the people and never minimize what people feel, whether it's something they're afraid of or anything really, right? Our feelings are valid and they should never be patronized.
Absolutely. Oh.
Yeah.
So I love Marisol so much. You mentioned earlier about how there were no characters that were like you. And I certainly felt that growing up as a avid reader and a book lover. And I think that's why, one of the reasons why I feel that your writing and your work is so important. As an Asian American woman, can you talk about the value of representation, especially for young readers who are seeing themselves in your books?
Yes. When I was growing up, I was a big fan of Judy Blume. Here's an example. I still love Judy Blume. And she had one book that had an Asian character in it. The character was Vietnamese. She had dark hair. We had nothing in common. The character was adopted. She had a lot of money. She was Vietnamese. But just that little nugget, when you don't see yourself depicted at all or positively in books and media, you kind of just glom on to whatever you can. So I loved that character for that reason. And when I was growing up, there were I can't recall ever reading a book or seeing a TV show or even a commercial that had a Filipino person or character in it. And I was convinced, because all the media I saw, the vast majority of the positive representations were white, and that's what I saw. And I became convinced that it sounds very silly now, but some of you may relate to this, but I became convinced if my eyes were blue, that my life would be way better. So I would always hope, like, oh, I hope my eyes turn blue. And there's actually a scene in one of my books, Blackbird Fly, where Apple, the main character, is eating carrots. She's eating carrots because she heard they're good for your eyes. And she thinks it's going to make her eyes turn blue, but really carrots are good for your vision. It doesn't have anything to do with eye color, spoiler. So it's important to know, I think I would not have felt that way so deeply, and I wouldn't have wanted to reject that part of myself if I had seen other people who looked like me and who had families like mine. And just seeing that and knowing that it's valid and you're not alone in the world. I think that's the bottom line, is any book, any person, all of us, no one wants to feel alone in the world. And it can be a very lonely feeling when the media you're consuming is pretty much erasing your experience.
And that was certainly my experience growing up, and I think that's why it's so awesome that you are writing books and that we're seeing your face and we're seeing Marisol, who talks about her Filipino mother and the lumpia that she eats and the pancit. There is a special connection, and I feel like for the next generation, when we see more authors of diverse backgrounds writing their stories, I'm hoping that the kids now won't have those feelings of loneliness or isolation or feeling that they're not good enough or wanting to change who they are. Because I've totally had those feelings of, if only I could change what I look like, because people made fun of the way I looked because of my eyes or my hair color, or the fact that my name sounded funny to them when in fact it's actually a very common name in Korea. And there are a lot of monosyllabic names in this country: Matt, Pat, Sam. But for some reason, Eun, even though it's still monosyllabic, people would freak out and say, well, that's such a weird and stupid name. Like, but is that any different from all these other names that you can say? I just feel like, but if there was somebody like you and other authors who could say, you know what, I see you and you're okay, that would have helped me along. I feel like we've learned all those things and raising our own kids, but I think that's why your work is so important, and I'm so glad that you're here. Lucky you guys who are reading Marisol and learning about her life. I also find, as a avid reader and as a parent of readers, there's this gap between picture books and the older reader, and I feel like, especially Hell of Universe and Marisol, that you speak to them. Can you talk about how you find that sweet spot to read, to speak to this age group and find your voice to this age group? I just feel like that's a tricky time as young readers.
Yes, and I feel like for me, when I reflect back on my childhood, there are specific years, there's specific feelings that feel very palpable. I can remember what it felt like to be a kid, and I think a lot of that is because I had all these worries and anxieties, and they just kind of nestled in my memory of childhood. So I think I just kind of tap into that brain space, if that makes sense. And I also have a deep respect for kids. I think that's important because I feel like a lot of times we grow up and then we forget what it's like to be a child, and we can be very condescending to young people, and we don't listen to what they're really saying or what they're trying to tell us, because in our minds their problems really aren't that serious because we have these big real world problems. But they are, right? I mean, they were very serious when all of us were young, and our worries were very big and valid. So just because you grow up doesn't mean that those problems change shape, right? It just changes our perspective. So I think about that a lot whenever I'm talking to kids or writing for them. I think about their experiences are valid. They're complex. They have belief systems. They have values. They may not be the same as an adult's, but that doesn't make them any less significant.
Yeah. It's a good reminder as a parent, because sometimes I think, I have to go to work and pay bills, and you're worried about this party next week and what you're going to wear, and I'm thinking, okay, this can't be. Or your first day of school. Right now we're all like, you have to worry about what to wear the first day of school. Is it going to be hot? Do I have to wear shorts? But I wanted to wear this outfit, But in your mind, especially if you're a worrier, you're going to wonder, what are people going to think about me? And I should, remember the way I was. Although my daughter's the same way. She is a take up the room kind of personality, which I wasn't like. What about your writing process? I know a lot of people want to be authors, and I think it seems like good ones make it seem like it's easy, but I can only imagine how difficult it is.
It's definitely not easy, and I've been writing for a really long time, since I was about 8 years old, so it's kind of been an ongoing evolution, if you will. But I did bring my notebook because one thing that I've done since I was a kid is I write longhand. So I write all my first drafts in notebooks, and this is actually the draft for the next Marisol Rainey book. So I kind of start off with, I know it's hard to see, but I kind of start off like with a little outline, if you will, of what I want to happen in the book, and then I just start writing. And so this is what it looks like. It's very messy, you know. I don't know if you could see this, but I spilled coffee on this notebook. So there's also coffee stains. And then I ask questions. As I'm writing, sometimes questions come up that I need to answer, and I'll make a list of all the questions that I need to answer. Yeah.
I love the longhand.
Yes, I love it. I just feel like it just adds something to the experience of writing. It makes me feel more connected to it. And then with Marisol, there was another element of the illustrations. So before Maybe Marisol Rainey came out, obviously I had to nail down what Marisol looked like, so I wanted to bring that too as well.
I'm so excited about
Just
this because I
early-
love the pictures.
Yes, so these are early drafts of what Marisol would look like. She looks very different now, but this was like the first image of Marisol that I drew. And in this, I know it's probably hard to see, but in this, she's wearing coveralls, and she has like bunches of leaves and flowers and stuff in her pockets, because originally I was going to make Marisol a little botanist, if you will. You know? She likes to gather things. So it took a lot of practice to try to figure out what Marisol was going to look like. And I had to get a lot of feedback from the art director at Harper to tell me, like, there's very different versions of Marisol here. But it was something I never had to think about before, because I didn't illustrate any of my other books, you know. So that was kind of a new experience.
Did you draw
Really
as a
fun.
child?
I did. I drew. I illustrated a lot of my books when I was a kid.
Gosh, I love
So yeah, but I never really thought of myself as an illustrator. I didn't think I would ever illustrate a book, but I illustrated these. So
I
guess
love
I'm an
the
illustrator.
illustrations. They make me so happy. I look forward to them. So it's interesting about when you say Marisol was going to be a botanist and a gatherer. How do you develop her to the Marisol in the books we read?
You know what? Honestly, I have to credit my editor, because as I was playing around with Marisol and trying to figure out what kind of girl she was, it just wasn't landing, you know, if that makes sense. It just didn't feel like, she didn't feel real. And at one point, my editor said to me, she said, why don't you, use yourself as more of a reference, like tap into what kind of kid you were. And at the time, I told her, I said, what am I going to write about? Because when I was a kid, I wouldn't do anything but stay in my room and like have an imagination and read books. How do you depict that in a story? And I remember in the meeting, I told her I wouldn't even climb a tree because I was afraid to climb a tree. And I said, no one's going to want to read about a girl who's scared to do everything. And she kind of gave me a look, and basically the look said, I think they will.
Yeah.
And so that's when Marisol started to take shape for me. And I realized that's when I realized, you know what? She's right. That you're not uninteresting just because you don't go out there and charge into the dark forest, right? You're still interesting and valid. I was, and any of you are, who are the same way as Marisol. So then I started changing her a bit.
I love it. It made me think of the story that you told me when you read the book reviews, which I feel like is a tough thing to do because you don't want to hear the negativity, but that someone thought you weren't believable when it was actually true. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So in Marisol, one thing Marisol loves is silent movies. And when I was a kid, because I had trouble sleeping all the time, I would get up in the middle of the night and sneak to the living room and turn on the TV. And the only thing that was on back then, in the olden days of yore, was in the middle of the night was the American movie classics. Okay? So I would watch American movie classics, and they would show silent films because it was the middle of the night, and that's what they showed because nobody but me was probably watching them. So I started watching Charlie Chaplin. And I love silent films. So Marisol loves silent films, and she also names everything, which is something that I did and still do.
You did? Oh, I love
Yes. So even to this day, my car is named Polly. My iPad is Ignatius. My computer is Dr. Theopolis. So I name everything in my life that's important to me. All my stuffed animals, because yes, I still have stuffed animals. And Marisol does the same thing. She names everything in her house. She names her stuffed animals after her favorite foods. So there's nacho, banana split, lumpia, pot roast.
So good. All the good. I was like, I love lumpia.
I know, right? All the good
love,
foods.
Yeah.
And so
Nachos.
she, that's Marisol. So back to your original question. There was a reviewer who said, this character, she loves silent movies, and she does all these things like naming the characters, and this just doesn't feel real to me. I don't think any kid is like this. I think the author just made this up to make her seem interesting. Ouch.
Right. Meanwhile, it is you.
It is me, yes.
See, I think so. You absolutely had a story to tell. I do want to leave some time for questions, and I'm wondering if anyone has any questions for Erin about Marisol. If not, I have more questions, but I just wanted to make sure people had an opportunity. Please feel free if you have any questions for Erin. In the meantime, if you don't have any questions, because you could be shy. I was not the kid who would have asked a question when I went to the book festivals,
No.
like the Scholastic and Fire, whatever.
I probably would have walked up later and said, can I ask you a question? Yeah. When nobody was looking at me.
So where does Marisol go next? Because you showed us the notes for the next book. Can we get a little preview?
Yes. So those of you who have read or will read, I hope, Marisol, you'll know that there is a dog in the books. And she doesn't know the name of the dog. It's a German Shepherd, but she names him Daggers. Because she thinks he's very scary. Mm-hmm. So the next book is going to deal with her confronting this fear of dogs, specifically German Shepherd. Okay. Yes.
All right. I think we're out of time. Sadly,
we're out of time.
Yes.
No.
I know. I wish I had more time. I wasn't sure if there were going to be any questions, but I get it. Erin, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
You too.
I really feel like the work you're doing is so meaningful in so many ways. So I hope Marisol keeps living on in our stories, and that there'll be other books for us to read too.
Me too.
And
thank you so
all
much
for coming today. We really appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.